Welcome inside this edition of Big Ten Today, fueled by Gatorade. Rick Pizzo, joined by Dave Wanstead, who gets a little bit itchy on this particular day every year. Feels like he should be inside an NFL war room, guzzling coffee and moving names up and down the draft board. You have sat in a lot of those rooms on this particular evening.
I have, and I'll tell you what, this is the time where everybody is optimistic, and it doesn't matter who they end up with, they're going to say it, Rick, okay? That we got a player that we feel is going to make an impact on our team and make a big difference. And I've always said this to my coaches, because you got to understand, these scouts that go on the road, they have been scouting these players for 2, 3, sometimes 4 years, and this is their Super Bowl. I mean, those scouts are all in there with the general manager, and they all have their guy, and they're jumping on the table for him. And, obviously it's big decisions, but this is the Super Bowl for NFL personnel people.
Of course, some prospects are called can't-miss prospects. There is no such thing. We often see number 1 overall picks fail. We see guys chosen late in the draft. Has anyone heard of Tom Brady? Succeed and exceed all expectations. It is our big story. Had a chance earlier this week to talk with FoxSports.com draft analyst Rob Rang. He shared with us his top 50, and look at how many Big Ten players are inside his top 30 and change, including a handful of Buckeyes and 2 Nittany Lions, who rank among his top 3 overall prospects, led by edge rusher Abdul Carter. So as we get into some of these players specifically, Dave, let's start there with Abdul Carter, who is a physical freak, can do a little bit of everything. That rush edge position has become so valuable in the NFL. He projects very well, likely to be off the board at the latest with the 3rd or 4th pick. What are your thoughts on Carter?
Yeah, studying him, I mean, you got to remember, he was a linebacker his first year at Penn State and was very productive, had 6 sacks, 10 tackles for losses, and then they moved him to defensive end. And he was able to improve his craft, his techniques, and I'm a believer of this, by doing it. There's a big comparison, because he's at Penn State, because he's kind of a great athlete. They compare Micah Parsons, Penn State linebacker, to our man Abdul, and to me, there's no comparison, because he is ready to play. Parsons is a great athlete that can do a lot of things, but it's just like our golf game, okay? I do a lot of things that I don't master any of them. You're out there doing one thing, and that's why you're a single digit, and I'm a bogey golfer, seriously. I mean, so you got to have reps at getting it, and that's what they've done at Penn State. And let me tell you something, there's some people, I don't think he'll be the first player taken, but there's a lot of people I've talked to that have him rated as the best player in the draft.
Certainly one of the best, if not the best athletes, and it must be springtime, and you must not be on an NFL staff, because if we're talking about golf in April, we know you're worried about things other than just the draft. Now, we'll get to his teammate Warren and some other offensive stars in just a bit, but let's stay on the defensive side of the ball with an intriguing prospect in Michigan's defensive tackle, Mason Graham. It's hard to say a guy of that size is undersized, but when you think about the size of defensive linemen right now in the NFL, he is a bit in terms of the height. So how does that affect him? How does he translate to the next level?
Yeah, when you look at a player like this, if I was on the draft board, he would be perfect in a scheme that I run, because we run a scheme where we're going to do a lot of movement with those defensive linemen. And with Mason's quickness and his lateral quickness and his strength, he fits perfectly in that situation. Get him on the move where he can make plays, and he's got great football intelligence. You know who he reminds me of? In fact, I will say this, grading him all year, Pro Football, the grades that they come out with, he graded the highest of any defensive tackle in college football. He graded out 91%. That's a huge number. That's a huge number. And you know who he reminds me of? He was a state heavyweight champion wrestler in high school. Who was an undersized defensive lineman that was a state wrestler that I recruited? Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald. Now, he's a little bit taller, but they're about the same height, and he plays with such great leverage, and he's so smart that there's something about these guys that when they get on the football field, that they have a chance to make a lot of plays.
Listen, if he sniffs Aaron Donald, NFL career, then it is an unbelievable career, because Donald just did things that very few defensive tackles in history ever did. Let's stay up there with a guy who may be one of the more polarizing prospects in this year's draft. When you look at Oregon's Derek Harmon, he checks every box physically.
Yeah.
There are questions about his medical concerns. So some teams have him among the top 10 picks. Some teams have him outside the first round entirely.
Some people like him better than Mason for one reason, his size. He's 6'5", he's 330, and he runs like Mason Graham. I mean, he is an athlete. And I'll tell you what, you got to give Derek some credit. You know, he was Michigan State, right? It rotated around in the lineup, and he went to Oregon and kind of bet on himself. And we all know Dan Lenning at Oregon. It's a no-nonsense. If you're going to come into his program, Rick, you know, we're going to toe the line. We're going to be on time. We're going to do the extra work. There's no nonsense. And he went in there, and he had a fantastic year, and he's a playmaker. And what he gives you is the guy that has the big size, but he's an athlete on top of it. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know how much, if there's anything with the injuries, it might hold him back. But this guy's a first-round talent. There's no question.
He's also the first guy off the bus. That's the guy that you want the opposing team to see when you walk off the bus and their eyes get big and they think, we got to deal with that guy.
Yep.
You would say the same thing about another monster of a man in Kenneth Grant, who played alongside Mason Graham. They were the best defensive tackle tandem without question in the country. I think the question probably is speed when it comes to the next level and ability to move.
Right, and I think if you draft our man Grant, you look at him and say, okay, he's going to play one-on-one with the guy, and he's going to use up blockers, okay, and he's going to let your linebackers run. So it's a different scheme, and that's how these scouts are looking at it. You don't want to draft a guy and say, oh, you know, we didn't need a big guy. We want smaller, quicker guys like Graham. No, if you're running a 3-4 defense and you're going to line up guys head up on people, he's your guy.
You talk about like an old school like Sam Adams, who used to play for the Ravens and let Ray Lewis clean everything up.
William Perry at the Bears. William Perry was about this guy's size and speed, you know, we know what type of player the Fridge was. So he's going to be that type of player. But there's people out there that really love this guy because, hey, he played on a national championship team, and that carries a lot of weight.
As did Will Johnson, another top-tier recruit at corner for Michigan. Now, the one question about Johnson, right, was his decision. Some of it was injury-related, but some of it was obviously his own personal decision to not play late in the year this past season when Michigan was struggling, and he knew his draft status was cemented. He has all the measurables. I'm always fascinated to know if that kind of decision-making affects his status and how coaches and GMs and scouts kind of discuss it.
Oh, 100%. We want to know everything about him, and that's why the personal interviews are important. You know, they'll talk to the trainers at Michigan, you know, and they'll talk to the coaches at Michigan, but hey, you want to get the kid in there and you want to do the research yourself, face to face. But I'll tell you why Will Johnson has a great opportunity is the new wave in the NFL right now is the big Chase Daniels, okay, Jefferson, okay, St. Brown at Detroit. All the receivers, everybody's into getting a big receiver. Well, at 6'2", 200, this is a big corner that can get your hands on you. And the guy hasn't given up a touchdown in 2 years. Okay, so it's not like I don't have any problems with him. I think he's going to be a great player. He runs 4.3. He has shown that he will come up and hit you. You know, and that's the big thing that they want to see. Will this guy come up and tackle when he has to? And he has shown that. So no, I think when you start putting about matching up with the big receivers, okay, we want the big corners, and he fits that mold exactly. He's going to have a great career, no question about it.
Yeah, Graham, Grant, Johnson, obviously a big reason Michigan won the national title 2 years ago. This past year, Ohio State won the national title. They only had 4 players drafted in 2024 because everybody on that defense decided to come back. Guys like JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams. Sawyer and Williams are both guys who I think will open a lot of eyes and be fascinating prospects for a lot of different teams out there picking late first, maybe early second round.
You know what, Tyleik Williams, you mentioned him. I talked to 2 guys that they're kind of scratching their heads because they said, wow, this guy's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the athletic ability to play the run and play the pass. And whenever you can get a guy that you don't say, oh, let's draft him, but he's only a run stopper or he's only a pass rush guy, it kind of handcuffs the guy a little bit. You know, where they like Tyleek, they say this guy can do both. He just needs to be developed some and get in a situation. And I'll tell you what, Jack Sawyer, I mean, how do you not love this guy? You know, I mean,
what a college football playoff run he had.
I mean, the guy was an ex-quarterback, right? I mean, you know, coming out of high school, he played that. He moves there. He really was one of the guys behind, hey, let's come back and try to win a national championship. He gets that done. He plays lights out. I think he had 9 sacks. He caused fumbles. He did it all. You know, I don't know how high Jack will get drafted, but there's a lot of people that say, I want him on my football team because he's going to help us win. And he's, you know what I mean? So, no, it'll be interesting to see who takes him, but he will be drafted. And just like he's done at Ohio State, he's going to find a way to win and help a football team win.
Yeah, I think Tyleek in the second round would be a great pick, and I think he's a guy, if he gets there, that could be really impactful. And if Sawyer's a mid-round pick, he's also a leader. He's a guy who's going to step into your point, be a great locker room guy right away, plays with a high motor, ton of energy. That's what you're looking for from guys you're not necessarily taking with that pure talent in the first 10 picks. Dave's not even close to being done. We have much more. Welcome the Head Husker into Big Ten Today for today's big interview. Coach, welcome. I would love to start with what we will see this Saturday. I know the fan base there, which you are very familiar with, is fired up for a match, whether it's spring, whether it's fall time. It's against Kansas inside Devaney this weekend. First time the arena has ever hosted a spring match. What are you most looking forward to, and what do you want to see from your team?
You know, I'm looking forward to a lot of it. Just the atmosphere, the fact that it's sold out, being able to give our players opportunity to showcase what we've been working on. You know, spring can get a little redundant, so it's going to be awesome to play an opponent. And I'm really looking forward to just coaching with this staff and, you know, figuring out our roles and, you know, how we can mesh together and what works well, what doesn't work well.
You and I were speaking off camera before we began the interview about the transition and not just the working part, not just the new coaching job, but everything that goes into, even at a familiar spot, moving into a new house, getting your kids to a new location, getting all the I's dotted and T's crossed. So what had the last 3 months been like for you, both personally and professionally?
It's been a whirlwind, and I always tell people this when they ask, like, the job has been the fun, the easy, I don't want to call it easy, but the easier transition, because the team and the staff that's been here has just been awesome, and that's been seamless. It's all the personal stuff that stresses you out with the move, the kid, making sure they're taken care of, and then, you know, all the paperwork. It's been a lot.
In terms
it's been
of
good, and thank goodness I'm home. You know, I can't imagine doing this time of year, being pregnant with and going somewhere that's brand new.
In terms of the job itself, how has the reality of returning to your alma mater to take this job compared to what you thought it would be?
It's been pretty surreal, and I knew it'd be a big deal, and I guess I'm blown away by everything that has been done here, and I think Troy Dannon's been amazing, and I really feel like every person here is like, we're not going to let you fail. We're going to make sure that you're taken care of and you have everything you need. And I figured that would be the case, but you never really know until you get somewhere what the reality is going to be. So it's been better than expected and blown me out of the water.
There's no question. It's never easy, any school, any sport, to take over for someone who is truly considered to be a legend at that school and in the sport. That's exactly what you do in taking over for John Cook, who is your coach, who's known as being one of the greatest to ever do this, if not the greatest to ever do it. So how do you kind of deal with any outside expectations, and whether they're realistic or not, of those who believe that you now need to live up to the legacy that Coach Cook has left behind?
I think it's going to be a challenge moving into the fall in particular, but right now I've just been really focused on making sure that I'm myself every day, and I'm not John Cook, and I never will be, but a lot of what I believe in and the way I coach is part of his coaching tree, so there is some familiarity, but I want to stay true to myself and what's made me successful up to this point. Yes, it was in a different location, but I can blend some of the past here into what was so successful at Louisville and make it my own. So just Just being able to always look back at that, and then having John as a resource. He's still around and willing to help and wants to help, and if I ever need him, I know he's there. So that's also a little bit of a comfort blanket, I'll say, when it comes to challenges, to have somebody that knows exactly what you're going through to be able to bounce things off.
Dani, you have an amazing championship pedigree that I mentioned as a player, as an assistant, as a head coach. So outside of pure talent, what's the golden thread that you've seen run through the best teams, your teams that have either won or made it to championship matches?
Like you said, the talent has to be there, number one. But number two, it's got to be a team that is really selfless and that they're able to put each other first and not worry about their stats or their awards, and really be focused on the team and be hungry. And I think it's also challenging in volleyball. Right now we don't have a conference tournament, which that I think is good, but every single game is important and every single game matters. You lose a game early on, you might not get a top 4 seed, or that could knock you out of a great situation going into the NCAA tournament. So it's just really important for a team to understand how important every day is. And usually it takes a very mature team. So maturity and, a team that's really selfless are two big keys.
And you do lose, obviously, some veterans from the team that John coached in his last year, and some outstanding players in Merritt Beeson, Alexi Rodriguez, who left as one of the greatest of all time, Lindsey Krause, and others. But several veterans do return. So what have you sensed from this group in terms of its chemistry and its connectedness?
Probably the most impressive thing since I've been here with this team is their chemistry and the way they are very, very focused on the team goals. And you never know what you're going to walk into with the team, and especially coming from a great situation. I was hesitant, thinking like, okay, there might need to be some work done with the culture piece and the chemistry, but luckily that's been really, really good. And again, really impressive by this team. And I feel like they're hungry and they know what it takes, and they have accepted the new players and pushed them. So it really doesn't feel like an inexperienced team. Even the freshmen that are here that came early, they don't act and they don't play like freshmen. I think that's credit to the upperclassmen, bringing them along and helping them understand what they need to do.
Dani, positionally, I'd like to start at setter. You have Bergen Riley, who became the first ever player in Big Ten history to be named setter of the year in both her freshman and sophomore seasons. She's joined now by a fellow freshman and the reigning Gatorade National Player of the Year in Campbell Flynn. So how does that rotation work its way out? How much do you expect Campbell to be able to learn from what Bergen has done?
For us in the spring right now, we're not focusing on a starting lineup or a starting setter or libero. It's, really giving everybody equal opportunities and make sure that everybody's comfortable playing with each other. But Campbell is a super talented setter, and it's really cool to see them battling back and forth. And I feel like Bergen's going to get pushed more than she has in the past 2 years by Campbell, and it's a really fun battle. We talk about Campbell being the type of player that she's not afraid to take risks, and she's going to go for it, and she's going to trust it. And I think that's bleeding into, Bergen. And then Bergen has been so good with the leadership piece. And I just really think these setters are like a unit. It's not looking at, okay, we have a junior setter who's a returning starter and a freshman setter who's highly touted. It's really like these setters are going to make our team great, not one or the other.
At the outside hitter spot, Harper Murray, Taylor Landfair, known commodities who have done it time and time again. I know they're joined by a couple of highly regarded young players. Where will the strength of that group be on the outside?
Again, it's really impressive, the experience that these freshmen are playing with, because I'm thinking, okay, well, Taylor and Harper have the experience coming back, but it really feels like Skylar Pierce and Tiara Stiegler are right there. And they are, they do not play like young players. And it's been really fun to watch them all compete. And as we mix up lineups and they all play with each other, there's no drop off. So statistically, it's a very close race. But it's a really fun one to coach and be a part of and watch them develop.
Your middles, from what I've seen, have gotten better during every year of their career. Andy Jackson, Rebecca Alec continue to improve. So what's next for them? What's the next step to take them to an even more elite level?
But I think both of them can improve in different parts of their game. Andy is known to be a lethal attacker, especially off one foot, and Becca as one of the best blockers in the country. It's like, can Becca become an elite attacker, and can Andy be considered one of the best blockers in the country? And, we've talked about that a lot, just that the improvement they're going to see in one area of their game is going to be marginal, and the improvement in the other area could be huge. And they need to celebrate those and not worry about, if they're only seeing a little improvement in the other parts of their game. But they both have, it's been impressive what Becca's done from an attacking standpoint and Andy from a blocking standpoint. So I'm really excited for Saturday to see that against another opponent, because when they're going against each other every day, they know each other so well, and it's easy to stop each other. So I'm excited again to see that against somebody else.
All right, lastly, Dani, at that DS libero spot, I mentioned Lexi, and it's impossible to say someone's just going to step in and replace a young woman who just won the Sullivan Award as the greatest amateur athlete in all of college sports in the U.S. But you do have some experience back there. Lainey Choboy probably with the most experience of that group. How have you seen that kind of play itself out during spring?
So that's going to be a tight race between all four of them. And I know, Lainey Choboy and Olivia Mock, they played a lot last year and had huge roles. But Carrie and Macy are doing a great job as well. So kind of like the setters, can they see themselves as a unit and not just a libero, a DS, a serving sub, but they have to see themselves as the best bro group in the entire country. And I think all of them could compete to be that libero spot. And again, it's been really, really fun to see them go at it every single day, and I've been impressed statistically how all four have been very even, and I'm excited for that position as well, to play against somebody else and somebody new.
Always nice when you're not beating up on each other in practice and you get to do it hopefully against a different opponent on Saturday night inside Devaney. Dani Busboom, Kelly, spent a lot of time here, touched on a lot of things. Really appreciate all the time. Best of luck in spring one and, of course, fall one when everything goes on the record books for real. Coach, appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Starting at tight end, Mackey Award winner, Heisman candidate, All-American Big Ten Tight End of the Year, All Big Ten First Team, two-time Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week, Fiesta Bowl Offensive MVP, Maxwell Award National Player of the Week, Mackey Award National Player of the Week, Paul Hornung Award finalist, Walter Camp Player of the Year semifinalist, Paul Hornung Award National Player of the Week, AP National Player of the Week. In the same game, tied the FBS tight end reception record with 17 in a single game, and set Penn State and Big Ten records with 224 receiving yards in a single game. Led FBS tight end with 4 rushing touchdowns and 12 total touchdowns this season. His 104 receptions in a single season are the most by a Penn State player, and Big Ten tight end. His 1,233 receiving yards are the most in a season by a Penn State and Big Ten tight end, and that's just this season. Also set Penn State tight end records with 153 career receptions, 1,839 career receiving yards, 19 career touchdown catches, 25 career total touchdowns, and 5 100-yard receiving games. The best tight end in college football, Tyler Warren.
Welcome back to Big Ten Today, and thanks to our friend Brian Tripp of Penn State for that unnecessarily long introduction of Tyler Warren, but that's what the young man deserves. He redefined what the position of tight end could be. Dave Wanstead, what did you see from him this year, and what do you think we'll see from him on Thursday night when it comes to the NFL draft and teams trying to value his versatility and how many different things he can do?
I just solved something I've been trying to figure out.
What's that?
Listening to that tape, now I know why Penn State receivers don't catch many passes.
Yeah, because they all go to Tyler Warren.
There's only one football, right? But I'll tell you, he, right off the top, you know who he reminds me of is Jason Kelsey. When Jason Kelsey
Travis Kelsey.
Travis Kelsey. When Travis came out of high school, I went up and talked to him out of Cincinnati, Cleveland. He was a quarterback, and he wanted to play quarterback, but he was a multi-position guy, and he's played 4 or 5 positions for the Chiefs, and that's what with Warren. I mean, God, I got Tyler playing 5 different spots, and obviously you got to be intelligent enough. You can't just line up there if you can't execute. So it shows his football intelligence is off the charts, and he's just a mismatch. You know, I mean, you can line him up at tight end. It's going to force defenses. No, everybody just talks about him getting the ball and doing that. Well, guess what? If you're defending that and he's lined up as a wide receiver, you're playing a different defense than if he's at the line of scrimmage.
And you're making pre-snap adjustments as a defense that can make you uncomfortable.
And you want to get the right people in there. You leave a linebacker in there, and he goes out wide, and that linebacker's got to go cover him. He's in a mismatch. So it puts a lot of pressure on the defense.
Or if you bring a safety down to cover him, and then that leaves the best wide receiver on the team maybe in single coverage against your corner. He can do a lot of different things. And we've heard the Kelsey comparisons from a pass-catching standpoint. To me, he reminds me a little bit more of George Kittle than he does Kelsey, who obviously has had a great career out of Iowa as well. Say Sam Laporta, same thing. These are comparisons I made with Rob Rang earlier this week. But the versatility, I think, is what sets Warren apart. It'll be fascinating to see how high he goes as a tight end, a position that I think, because of all those guys we just mentioned, has become a little bit more desirable in today's NFL than it had been 5, perhaps 10 years ago. So let's continue with tight ends and a different kind of tight end at Michigan. Colston Loveland, a guy who sometimes looks more like a wide receiver because of his skill set, because of the way that his body is built, but a guy who has the potential to be massively productive at the next level as well.
Yeah, you know, we're on the comparison thing. The Bowers kid, okay, who was drafted out of Duke.
Oh, Brock Bowers,
right?
yeah.
Who now is at the Raiders. He set all the records for most catches by a tight end as a rookie ever. And he's that type of guy that you can flex out like we're talking about, having a mismatch. The one thing about Colston that I would say that I think that the guy can be an every down tight end from a true tight end position. Yes, can you spread him out? You know, let's remember, this guy played for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Okay, I mean, you got to be a tough-minded, you got to be a physical player. You might not see that in some of the pass-catching roles that he's in, but you know, when Jim was there and they won the national championship, they were running the football. Yeah. This guy was a major part of that. Last year, he gets banged up a little bit. People were saying, and then the quarterback situation. We did the shows and talked here during the season. It was one guy in, you got a runner in, you got a passer, you're benching a guy. I mean, so the quarterback situation has a lot to do with the production of any tight end or receiver. I think it was a little bit of a tough year for him because of all those variables. But this guy's a frontline player. You draft him, you put him in, and you just go to work.
Yeah, I don't think you could look at his numbers from last year as a true barometer of what he could do. I also think when you think about what offenses are doing right now in the NFL and how they're trying to be so multiple and make things look different, what about putting a guy like Loveland, and it's not conventional, but a tight end of that size, in a slot receiver role from time to time? Because then that gives him the opportunity to run a 5-yard pattern, sit down and collect first downs. And when you try to bite on that, then he has the speed to take a linebacker or a safety deep.
I'll tell you, when I was at the Dolphins coaching, Bill Belichick was doing a lot of the stuff you're describing with Gronkowski.
Yes.
And I would have to decide, okay, do I want to put my emphasis in stopping the run, or do I want to put a coverage guy in there because he's going to be moving or lining up somewhere else and cover him? And again, stress on the defense, making a decision, and all of a sudden they see a linebacker in there, and now they audible to a pass. So, I mean, it can be a mind game.
In terms of wide receivers, Ohio State's receiver room has been and continues to be arguably the most loaded positional room in the country.
Right.
Because they've been so good for so long at that spot. They continue to roll guys through. It was Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now it's Emeka Egbuka. A lot of comparisons drawn between those two guys because of how smooth Egbuka is. But Dave, we talked earlier about leadership and Jack Sawyer kind of being a leader on a defense as a rookie. Emeka Egbuka will come into any team, and with his production, with his maturity, with the way he handles himself, will be immediately respected, even by veterans.
You said respect, and I'll tell you what. Think about Emeka, what he went through. Jeremiah, all we talked about was Jeremiah Smith, what he's doing as a rookie. And Egbuka just kept quiet, and he kept working, and he kept working. And when they got down in those playoff games, this guy shows up big time. And that's what the pros are looking at. They said, you know, boy, he was there and he could have put his head down. This is my year to get out, to get drafted. I'm not getting the ball. No, this guy's a program guy. He's a leader, just what you said, Rick. He's a character guy. And when the moment comes, when big moments came during the season and they called his number, he always showed up. And, you know, let's not forget, he was a kick return guy as a freshman up there. So he brings, besides his receiving ability, the guy can return kicks. So that's added value. He could be, I think a lot of people have him and maybe the kid at Texas and the kid at Arizona. There's three of them. He could be the first receiver taken off the draft. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think most teams are probably focused on McMillan out of Arizona, but whoever gets Ibuka is going to get a guy who's ready to play and ready to be a pro right away. And that's a big part of it. People forget, you might be ready to play, but you may not be ready to be a pro. And those are two very different things. Let's get into some of the big fellas up front on the offensive line. We had a group of offensive linemen last year that was so good. You have 4 prospects ranked among the top 50 according to The Athletic. Josh Simmons from Ohio State, who's expected to be the first offensive lineman off the board. But Josh Connerly from Oregon is a plug-and-play guy. Ariante Ursary, one of those Minnesota linemen that have really developed over the last couple of years, and Jonathan Jackson as well. Let's start with Connerly at Oregon. You mentioned no nonsense with Dan Lanning, and I know a lot of attention went to Dylan Gabriel in that pass game, but that is a physical-first offense, and that means up front you have to play physical football, and that's exactly what Connerly was able to do.
And they throw it, they protect the quarterback, and the thing that NFL people love about Josh is that for his 2 years starting, he played 97% of the snaps at left tackle. And when you talk about a guy that's 6'5", 310 pounds, and runs 5 flat, that's an athlete playing left tackle. What does that tell me? If I'm in the draft room right now, I say, hey, you know what? We can get Josh, and if we want to put him at right tackle, athletically he can do it. We want to put him at guard, athletically he can do it. And he's been coached well. He's been coached hard. And, you know, this guy was a running back in high school. So that's
crazy.
That's just reinforcing my point that he's an athlete. He's an athlete. He's not a big, oversized offensive lineman that's kind of stuck in the mud. No, you can play this guy a lot of places, and he's going to be a good player. A lot of people were talking about him. He's going to be a high pick.
Speaking about a lot of places, we saw Ohio State's offensive line last year had to move guys in and out, different position with a couple of different key injuries. Donovan Jackson was one of the guys affected, never batted an eye, just went out there and remained focused on his job, and that's why he and Simmons both expected to be fairly early picks from that offensive line.
Yeah, the thing I like about Donovan is he's got some road grader in him. You know, I would play him at guard. You know, sure, he can play tackle. I would play him at guard because he's not as athletic as some of the guys, okay? But the guy's got size, 6'4", 320 pounds. And the tape that I'm watching, you know, he's not one of those guys that hits you and fall down. If he can drive you 5 yards into the end zone, he's going to do that. And so I would put that big body in there at guard. I think that would give him the best chance to be successful. I mean, during the playoffs, the guy gave up 0 sacks during the whole playoff run. And that's something that the pro scouts, obviously, with throwing the ball, will be looking at. I'm looking at the physical part. They're going to be looking at, okay, can he protect the passer? Yes, he can.
We'll also be looking at Ariante Ursary to see where he goes. Amazing job by P.J. Fleck, by the way. When he got to Minnesota, they didn't have enough offensive linemen to scrimmage during his first spring. Now, annually, he's sending linemen to the first and second rounds of the. We have arrived at tournament time in the world of Big Ten women's lacrosse. Quarterfinals are in the book, setting up Friday semifinals between number 1 seed Northwestern and Johns Hopkins. The other semi, Maryland and Michigan. Winners play for the Big Ten Tournament Championship on Sunday. You can see all 3 of those games right here on the Big Ten Network. Big Ten men's lacrosse tournament is next week, but season-ending awards have been released. No surprise to see multiple Ohio State award winners here, including Coach of the Year Nick Myers. Buckeyes with a phenomenal year, capped off by a tremendous fourth-quarter comeback to beat arch-rival Michigan on the final day of the regular season and claim the Big Ten regular season championship. It was an amazing Sunday final round performance by Kiara Romero and the Oregon Ducks to claim both the individual and team titles at the 2025 Big Ten Women's Golf Championships. Oregon, one of 8 Big Ten schools invited to the NCAA Women's Golf Championships. 6 other individuals representing 5 schools also will be a part of the NCAA field. Welcome in women's golf analyst and former Gopher standout Emma Carpenter. Emma, let's look back to that Sunday. You were on the call at Bully Rock up in Havre de Grace. Oregon had to come from behind. Michigan State had the lead to start the day. But what a final round. And what did you see from both Romero and the entire Ducks team?
Right. Pleased to be with you today, Rick. We absolutely have to start by giving credit where credit's due. Oregon showed out at the Big Ten Women's Championship. That final round, they looked so in control from start to finish. They started the final round trailing Michigan State by 3, and they won by 14. They were the only team to shoot under par in that final round, and they shot 12 under par. That scores speak for themselves. The grit, the talent, the passion, the will to win ultimately brought it home for them. 11 counting birdies on the back nine alone. And sophomore Kiara Romero, she was simply sensational. In complete command of her golf game, 71, 70, 68 was her 3-round scores. She made that 68 look effortless, Rick, like she could have done it in her sleep.
It was at Havre de Grace at Bully Rock. This week, we moved down to Baltimore and the men's golf championships. I know you'll be on the ground at Baltimore Country Club on the call alongside me and Eric Ciotti. So, Emma, what will the men see this week when they get to Baltimore Country Club? What kind of player does this course favor?
That's right. Excited to gear up for the men's championship this weekend. And this tournament at Baltimore Country Club, it's a classic golf course. USGA has it listed as one of the first 100 clubs established in the United States. We're talking back to the 1890s. It's hosted a men's U.S. Open, PGA Championship, men's U.S. Amateur, U.S. Walker Cup, U.S. Women's Open, Champions Tour Major. The golf course is traditional, and although it won't be too long for these players, the rough is going to be thick, the greens are going to be treacherous, and with how back to front these greens are pitched, these players are going to want to place the golf ball at the front of the green 9 times out of 10.
Did not see a lot of birdies in the past when we've seen this played at Baltimore Country Club. You have to wonder how aggressive the coaches are suggesting that their players try to play. And Emma, one coach who I know personally always asks his players to be aggressive is Mike Small at Illinois. And what he's built in Champaign is unbelievable. You think about the fact that they're clearly the best non-warm weather program in the country. They are seeking their 14th Big Ten title since 2009. Just how strong is this Illinois team as it comes into Baltimore Country Club this time around?
I'm glad that you brought that up, Rick, because the last time Baltimore Country Club hosted the men's Big Ten championships was in 2017 and 2018. That's when Illinois won their 3rd and then their 4th consecutive Big Ten title, and they have gone on to win every single year since then. Illinois is going to be considered the team to beat this year, and you know why? Because they're the team to beat every year at the Big Ten Championship. They've got 2 wins this season. They're ranked number 13 in the scoreboard clipped rankings. And although Illinois has always had great success, Rick, it was taken to a new level of dominance when Mike Small took over and has now turned Illinois into a complete powerhouse golf school. He's coaching at his alma mater. Mike Small is legendary. He's in his 23rd season, won 13 of the last 15 Big Ten championships, 13-time Big Ten Coach of the Year, and that's a conference record. Illinois is going to be looking to reclaim their crown this weekend after last year's upset.
And Small is a guy who, by the way, can still really play. Not sure if he goes head-to-head ever with his best player, Jackson Buchanan, who is inside the top 10 in the PGA Tour U standings, has been one of the best college players, one of the best amateurs now for quite a few years. Emma, how big of a favorite is Buchanan going in, and who else could potentially challenge him?
Well, you know, Rick, I've heard rumors of some of my friends who have played for Mike Small. They say that they love the challenge from Mike Small, and oftentimes they still can't get it done against the guy. But Jackson Buchanan is a player that is always going to put himself in this conversation that you're bringing up this weekend at the Big Ten Championship. He's a senior, 15th in the World Amateur Golf rankings, 29 on clipped scoreboard. He's already had a major start. He's played in the U.S. Open, and that was just this last year. He's got an individual win that came this fall. Big Ten Golfer of the Year last year, unanimous Big Ten first team, runner-up at Big Tens last year, so he's definitely going to be trying to get it done.
Who else could potentially challenge him from which teams, Emma?
Well, you got to look at Northwestern. Daniel Sverd, he is the back-to-back Big Ten medalist, the junior Swede. And Northwestern, that was the team that took it from Illinois last year, and they did it in tremendous fashion. I mean, it was a 15-shot victory. They were leading after each round. It was definitely earned, but Daniel Sverd, back-to-back Big Ten champion medalist. It was his freshman year, then his sophomore year. That's a way to announce your arrival to the Big Ten. He's ranked 70 on the scoreboard Clem's rankings, and he has had some ups and downs this season, but he just picked up a huge win where he was co-medalist at the Goodwin this past month. And then UCLA, Pablo Areño. He's a senior. He's 12th in the World Amateur Golf rankings, 19th in the Clip scoreboard rankings. Both he and Jackson Buchanan are in the top 10 of PGA Tour University rankings. And Pablo Areño, he won his very first event of the season this past fall. He hasn't won since, so he might just be ready to win his first ever appearance at the Big Ten Championship.
Areño and UCLA, a team that, as far as the rankings are concerned, and Emma, you and I look at a lot of these, you can base it on one particular ranking system or another, but in pretty much all of those ranking systems, it is UCLA and Illinois that are the two highest ranked Big Ten teams nationally. You mentioned Svard and what Northwestern could do and what they did a year ago. In the team race, Illinois is the clear favorite, at least in most people's estimation. Which teams could most likely challenge Illinois this year at BCC?
Well, absolutely, UCLA that you mentioned. They're actually the only team in the field this week that's ranked ahead of Illinois, just one spot at number 12. Illinois is 13. They've got 2 wins this season, but this will be the first time that UCLA and Illinois play each other head-to-head this year. You got Oregon as well, number 36. They've won back-to-back events this spring at the Band and Dudes Championship and at their own Duck Invitational. There's also Purdue. Purdue's just closely behind, just one spot back from Oregon. They're at 37. They've got 3 wins this season and a couple other runner-up finishes. One of those runner-up finishes included beating number 12 UCLA head-to-head at the Fighting Irish Classic. So we've got some really good talent and some firepower that's going to be showing up this weekend.
Great stuff, as always, from Emma Carpenter, as I mentioned, on the call this weekend, alongside me and Eric Ciotti, as the Big Ten Men's Championships come to you live from Baltimore Country Club. Emma, thanks for the time. And a reminder, this will be the first time ever that we bring you coverage of the Big Ten Men's Golf Championship. Spring football comes your way. Maryland, Rutgers, Oregon, all in action. Our live coverage of those schools begins at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. A couple of minutes left with Coach Dave Wanstead as we approached round 1 of the NFL draft. Now, these guys we're going to discuss not likely round 1 selections, but may have round 1 ability as sleepers taken outside the first round. We start with running backs. I know you love Caleb Johnson, and both guys have played this year for Ohio State.
I do. Henderson and Judkins. You know, the interesting thing is last year, the first Big Ten running back to be drafted was Blake Corum in the third round.
Yeah.
I think that the Big Ten, everyone's telling me that we get a chance to have 3 backs taken in the first 2 rounds. And it's, you know, Henderson, they're saying, hey, this guy can do it all. First, second, third down. We saw him catch the ball well. We saw him make big plays in the run game and block. And in Judkins, you know, you have to go back to his Ole Miss days. I mean, the guy tied Herschel Walker's record or something as a freshman. This guy's got ability. I don't think we've seen probably enough of him at Ohio State. And then obviously Caleb Johnson had a great year. And with Kurt Ferentz's background NFL, it's going to give him a little bit of push too. So it'll be interesting. I think all 3 of these guys, like I said, got a chance to go in the top 3 rounds for sure.
Let's get a thought from you on an offensive and defensive sleeper. On the offensive side, why do you like Maryland wide receiver Ty Felton?
I tell you, people are just raving about this kid's ability. You know, I mean, we talked about big receivers. Okay, he's got size, 4.3 speed, played the slot receiver, just needs to get stronger physically and mentally. If he commits to that, he'll be in the league.
Mike Loxley felt like anytime they absolutely needed to get a first down, Ty Felton was a guy that could deliver. On the defensive side, Carson Schwessinger has opened your eyes.
Coach, he's my Jack Sanborn of this year, okay?
Oh, I love that comparison.
I mean, this guy started,
is Jack Sanborn.
Well, he started 1 year, and he had 100 and some tackles. The guy blocked kicks. He got interceptions. He got sacks. He's a bioengineering major. Get this kid on your team.
I think you just love saying Sanborn because he went from here in Chicago to Dallas, two franchises that you're a little bit familiar with, I understand.
Just a little bit. We'll see what Matt Eberflus does with him.
All right, I'm going wherever Dave's going tonight because he is the guy that you want to hang out with for the NFL draft. See you next time on Big Ten Today.